Hi buddy, welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 719 patch notes video. So I'm going to try as hard as I can to make this one relatively concise. We'll see if we can keep it to an hour. I know I say that every time, but I really am going to try. So I've taken out kind of that meta section in the middle. I don't think the meta is shifting that much on this patch, and I'm just doing a top 5 for each role. And we're just going to move through it pretty quickly and then eventually get to the support tier list at the end. We'll see if we can keep this all in one video. So, if you're new to the channel, then you can find timestamps in the description to skip around to your favorite parts. And you can also access this Google Doc in the description as well if you'd like. So let's go ahead and get in here. Okay, so the TLDR, I think that the top 5 gainers for this patch are going to be Caitlyn, Azir, Rakan, Sona, and Galio. I think the top 5 losers are going to be Janna, Vayne, Tristana, Lulu, and Kog'Maw. And we'll talk about why as we go back through here in terms of just the patch notes winning and losing. Okay, Aatrox buff doesn't matter, still irrelevant. Aatrox's problems aren't addressed here. Anything that's a melee champion that doesn't have that much mobility or crowd control and sticking power is going to have a huge problem just in general in solo queue, and so that doesn't change here. Like you might see him okay at like silver and bronze, but overall they're just better choices most of the time. Azir, I think this is a really big buff to Azir. I've seen some people saying that maybe it's not. I've personally played against Azir a few times on this patch, and I'm here to tell you it's a huge buff. And they just buffed him last patch too. So I think it's really big. So why is it big? Okay, well, first of all, he gets plus 10 movement speed to start with. I think, right? Yeah, base movement speed, which is huge. That lets him reposition a lot easier, lets him escape ganks. I mean, movement speed is a really big deal on mages. And the fact that Azir gets 10 more is a huge deal. Okay, so what else is going on? Big increase to his base Q damage and the spear length. So if you look at this, they are nerfing the cast range, so you can't throw it as far. But the spear length also gets 70. So the range is really only being nerfed by about 85. The cooldown is lower, so you can spam it more, which doesn't matter that much in lane. But the base damage is up a whopping 45, which is big. Now, the ability power ratio is down, but this is okay. I mean, this is primarily just kind of like your harass in lane. I'm not an Azir expert, but I imagine this is how it's going to go down. It's primarily a harass in lane, so you do get a little bit less ability power scaling. That's not going to affect you too much early on. Like, this extra 45 more than makes up for this. I mean, before you would feel this, you would, like, this ability power shift, you'd have to have over 200 ability power, well north. 200 ability power, you would do 40 less damage off of the scaling, and you're getting plus 45 here. So you'd have to have, like, 220 ability power before this even matters. And he's going to have so much damage late game, it doesn't matter at all. So getting this much, like, up front early on is a really huge deal. And they clump together closer on arrival. I'm not sure if that's going to matter that much. That might hurt his ability to like hit multiple targets, but overall, it's pretty good for his Q. His W has a longer cast range. The command range has changed to 660 though, so once again, they're making him lower range. I think Azir not being able to use his soldiers to attack wards and trinkets is going to be a bigger deal at higher elos when people try to bait with wards a lot more, but for just everyday play with most people, that's not going to matter too much. They are lowering the damage later levels by a little bit, but they're increasing it at lower levels, which, once again, Azir's problem is not late game. He has a ton of damage late game. It's early game. And so this is really going to help him with trades early on. Getting that 10 extra damage right off the bat is going to be a big deal. And this is the huge one. Whenever he has 3 soldiers on the battlefield, then he gets up to 60% additional attack speed when he summons this. And there are all kinds of different combos that you can have. So you can still only hold 2, I believe. But now if you hit somebody with Shifting Sands, you can get that 3rd one. Actually, I think you can hold 3. Let me see. Bonus attack speed gets doubled if he has 3. Recharge time. Yeah, he can only hold 2 at once. And they last for 10 seconds. So, and the recharge time goes down to 6. So what you can do is you can cast 1 and then 2. When you have 2 charged up, you cast both of them, and then you wait 6 seconds for another one. But another way that you can do it is you hit somebody with your shifting sands. That automatically gives you 3, and that's when you get the huge amount. So you can cast 1, cast 2, and then boom, go in, hit them with the E, get a 3rd one, and then just start slaughtering. Then you can cast another one after 6 seconds. So you'd get a total of like, you know, somewhere near 10 seconds uptime with that super attack speed. And that's going to be a really, really big deal in combat, especially if you have like a tank on you or something. Getting that huge shield using shifting sands is a big deal. Now, it doesn't stop him. To enemies he passes through. So you can go through people with this. And it's not going to stop you anymore. So you get the shield when you cast, but you can still go through people, and you get that Sand Soldier, and it doesn't stop you anymore, I don't believe. So people can't block you while you're doing this anymore. So you can always get away, and you get a Sand Soldier when you go through somebody like that. So, pretty big deal. So you get more soldiers more often, lower cooldown, get that massive attack speed buff. Well, that's from the PvE. Get the massive attack speed buff. Now, one issue here, though, is you do have less wave clear early on. So it's 40, 70, 100%. Because they used to always do full damage whenever you hit multiple targets, secondary targets with your spears. So that's the only thing that's like kind of concerning, is it does hurt your wave clear a lot, and it will hurt you when you're hitting like multiple targets with your Sand Soldiers in battle. So that's definitely a deal. You do get a lot of extra attack speed out of it, and you do get all these other bonuses. So it helps him in lane, but it's going to hurt his wave clear, and it's going to hurt him later in the game. So if he's not as good as I think he's probably going to be, then this would be the reason why. This is the one thing that'd be holding him back. Now, he does get a huge shield with a 0.7 ratio on it. So he gets 240 with a 0.7. So, you know, if he has 200 ability power, then he's going to get 140 shield on top of this. That's a 380 shield, which is a pretty big deal. So he never had a ratio on it before, so that's effectively going to give him somewhere between a 70 to a 140 shield. So that's really big. And so now it's a very good one-point wonder, potentially. I keep going back to that. I got to just X out of that. So yeah, overall, I think he's going to be pretty good. He does get extra, like I said, a lot of extra damage when he summons his soldiers. He's going to do a little bit less at early levels to multiple targets. But they did buff him in several other ways. So I think he'll be a top 5 in high-level play with people who can use him correctly. We'll see. I mean, Rise has been seeing some play in Worlds too after the buff to his W. So they both kind of serve a similar role, where it's like sort of your machine gun, like steady AoE damage, AP carry. Then they've taken the place of Cass in this for the most part, because they nerfed Cass a lot. You know, a lot of analysts were saying, oh, the Cass nerf wasn't a big deal. It's a big deal. If any, like, the amount that she has been played in Worlds is much lower than it has been in the past. So Cass was almost must pick, must ban all the time. And then if we look at like the first week of Worlds here, let's see, she did win a decent chunk. So she was 4-2, but she's not nearly as present as a lot of these other champions were, right? So like Ori, Corki, Syndra, Galio, Talia, you know, all these champions were pick banned a lot more than Cass. So she still is relevant. But I don't know. I think that Azir could squeeze in and get some of that. The main problem with Azir is his itemization. I think you have to go Nashers and Rylai. I have seen a lot of people going Morello. I'm not quite sure what's up with that. I mean, you do get the CDR for that, so I guess you'd go Morellos instead of Nashers, but Nashers gives you 50% extra attack speed, which is most of your damage is from your soldiers attacking a lot. So, you know, I'm not really sure like what the deal is with that. Why I don't see more Nashers here, because I thought that was core on Azir. Like this build right here is the build I'm thinking of when I'm thinking Azir. I'm thinking like Nashor's Tooth, probably Rylai's into like Void Staff and stuff like that. But a lot more people have been going for this Morellonomicon build instead of Nashor's. And like, you get 20 more ability power. They both have 20% CDR. Pretty sure they cost the same amount. All you're getting, in my mind, you're getting Grievous Wounds, which maybe against like enchanters, people feel like that's a really big deal. 'Cause maybe you think you can get away with like not having your ADC get executioners. I don't think so because Grievous only applies if it's below 35% health. And you get 400 mana. So, and you get mana when you kill people. But I don't think mana is his problem because like his auto attacks with his soldiers are his damage and those don't cost anything. And his spells are relatively cheap. Like that's only 60 for his E. It's only 40 to summon soldiers. It's only 70 for Conquering Sands. And you're going to get blue buff anyways, mid lane. I don't know. I'm skeptical. Like, obviously, there are a lot better players than I am, but I really would favor Nashers. I mean, 50% attack speed is so huge over mana. Now, the basic attacks deal that extra damage on hit. It doesn't apply to soldiers, I'm pretty sure. So that doesn't matter as much, but I don't know. Would you rather have 50% attack speed or 400 mana? So what, 20 ability power, I guess, and 400 mana or 50% attack speed is what that comes down to. And I'd rather have the attack speed, honestly, but I don't know. Either way, I think he's going to be good. Okay, we'll move on. All right, Caitlyn, huge buff. It's been so long since Caitlyn's been relevant in the meta. Anyways, like, so they decided to bring her back. She has much higher base attack speed. They did lower her innate extra attack speed by 5%, but you know, once you're level 3, then it makes up for that. Or yeah, they lowered it from 15 to 10. Once you get to level 3, you're going to get 6% extra attack speed off of this growth. So yeah, it's not going to matter. Once you get to level 3, this nerf right here is not going to matter. So I guess that just kind of keeps her in line for the first 3 levels, so she's not like going out of control with that attack speed. But it does give her extra base attack speed too, which is nice. They're nerfing her health, but whatever. I think that's fine. Headshot can now proc on turrets, which is a huge deal. So yeah, that's big. And now they're giving her back her wave clear, so it does 67% to targets beyond the first again. So they're giving her back her wave clear. So they're basically unnerfing everything they nerf. So they're just about. So they're taking away. They're giving her back her attack speed. They are giving her back her wave clear. They're giving her like headshot procs on turrets, which is huge for Siege. And they are making her snap traps do a ton more damage, which that is the problem. That's why she's overpowered. Like they just nerfed her so many other ways that it didn't matter that much. But it's really those snap traps are what has made her overpowered. And the trap duration is down, but whatever. You know, they still last for, what, 30 seconds or something? Yeah, the recharge time gets down to 12 seconds. And they still stay up for 50 seconds. So it's like, who cares? She can still get 5 of them and put them in a line on a ramp, and you're not getting in there. Now, it might look like, well, hold on a second. They changed it from 100% of your total AD, or 100% of your bonus AD to 60% of your total AD. And she doesn't get that much AD, right? She gets 1 AD item and then 2 attack speed items typically. So she's going to go Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shiv. All right? But it's actually a lot more damage. So if you just look at level 9 with just Infinity Edge and a level 5 W trap, for example. The old one would be, I did the math there for you, plus 93 damage off the Yordle Snap Trap. The new one is plus 136 damage. So that's plus 43% damage when you compare it to bonus AD versus total AD. So it's a 43% damage increase on Caitlyn at single item when you get Infinity Edge. And you're not going to get any more AD. Remember, you're going to get Static Shiv and Rapid Fire. So that's going to apply for much of the game. She's going to get 43% extra damage on her headshots off of traps. What? So she's really going to be like coming close to one-shotting squishy targets with this. Oh, I need to. I'll just take that out. I talk about the top ADCs here in a little bit. So, anyways, I think Caitlyn's going to be a beast again. I think she might squeeze Trist out as the premier Sieger now because they just nerfed Trist a couple of times last patch, and the reason that Trist wasn't relevant, if you're wondering why are people all of a sudden playing Trist over the last few patches when we haven't seen Trist in years on the competitive scene, and it's because Caitlyn squeezes her out. It's Caitlyn does what she does better. Caitlyn sieges, but she has more utility, just higher burst damage, much more oppressive early on. Caitlyn's just a better version of Trist when they're both good champions. And now Caitlyn's back to being a good champion again. So I think she's going to take over. I think, in pro play, you might see her permaban again. In solo queue, I think she's going to be very, very good. Very good. Because they didn't, this. They made the problem that she had even worse, and they took away her nerfs. The only reason they're giving her back all this stuff, I think, is because maybe they're not sure if nerfing her headshot interaction with Hurricane, that might be enough to keep her in line. It's not. It is not. Because that was a big one, too. So they nerfed all this attack speed stuff and all these other things. Her wave clear with her Q. There were 3 major nerfs. Nerfs to her attack speed around the board. Nerfs to her wave clear off of her Q. And then the nerf to Hurricane to where it no longer adds additional stacks to her headshot. So you can no longer use one attack with Hurricane and get 3 stacks towards your headshot. So she's getting headshots every, 3rd attack in a big team fight setting. Okay, so that the real reason is not the Hurricane. That is why she fell out of favor. Because she can easily substitute that back in for rapid fire static shiv. That's still a really good build on her. Yeah, you're not going to be getting a million consistent headshots, but you're still going to be getting a lot of really long range damage. And you're still going to be getting a lot of that snap trap damage and zone control with the traps. So they gave her back 2 of her nerfs, basically, and they added an extra you can headshot turrets now. So now she takes towers even faster. And don't forget that your rapid fire cannon, when you get that extra range, I think it's 150 extra range off of rapid fire, that can also proc the headshot. So rapid fire is very good on her now. I don't know if you can hear my daughter screaming in the other room. I don't know what she's doing. I think my wife's messing with her. 35% increased range. Up to 150. Okay. So she gets 150 range. I think Caitlyn has 650 base. So that means you have 800 range. That's about the same range as a tower. I'm pretty sure a tower is 800 range. So you can just walk up even if you wanted to and just take 1 tower shot and pop this thing. And it does extra bonus on hit damage and can headshot and apply it. So it does a ton of extra damage. So basically you just walk around, headshot tower, walk around, headshot tower. As soon as you get this rapid fire up. A lot of the time. So I guess you have to auto attack to get the headshot procs. But anyways, it's going to be really, really beast for early game, just pushing and taking down towers. And she's still she's very good against a lot of engaged champions because of those traps. So she's not amazing at cracking tanks, but tanks have also been nerfed quite a lot because she doesn't get the same kind of attack speed that Tristana gets. But she's a lot better against Rakan specifically, because those traps in front of you stop Rakan from dashing onto you. So if you're sieging, you just put a trap line in front of you. Just put the traps up front and then just put 1 in front of you and just keep a trap between you and Rakan, and he can never dash onto you. He would have to flash R onto you to hit you. So it's just Rakan's the best support right now, I think, and Caitlyn's very good against Rakan. So yeah, Caitlyn's top 3 AD carry, I think, pretty easily now. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We're moving pretty quickly here. So yeah, Caitlyn, amazing. Play her if you know how to play her AD carry. She's harder than people think to play, though, because whenever someone steps on a trap to get that full damage, you really need to auto-attack to trigger it, and then you net backwards. Q while you're netting backwards. So you net, and then while you're in midair, you Q. So the net hits them. It procs another headshot. Hits them with the Q, and then you hit them with 1 more headshot. So they step on a trap, auto, net backwards, Q while you're netting backwards to hit them, and then hit them with another headshot, and that will almost kill somebody instantly in lane. It's at least 75% of their health. So that's what you need to do. I see too many times Caitlyn just land it, just someone steps on a trap and all they do is just auto attack. Even when they're really close, they don't go for the full rotation. I've only seen diamond level Caitlyn's do that, and that's really what you want to do, diamond plus. Okay, so Janna, massive nerf. I tried playing her yesterday. It felt really bad. I'm pretty sure we lost. I don't think it was because of Janna. I was doing like okay in the game, but she does not feel nearly as powerful as she used to be. So what's going on? And a lot of it has to do with these hot fixes up at the top. So basically within the first 2 days, they're like, oh, people are still playing Janna. All right, let's nerf her. Let's make sure no one plays Janna, basically. So they nerfed her base move speed by 15. Yes, she does get extra speed with Tailwind, but that was designed to compensate for her other nerfs. And now basically that Tailwind doesn't give you very much at all. Like you're going to get an 8% move speed, so you're going to get like 25 extra move speed. So you're going to gain 10 extra move speed. So basically your base move speed is 345, sort of, with Tailwind. But you're going to get less scaling off of mobility boots and other things now. Knocked off 25 health at the start, which is huge. That makes you super squishy early on. Knock off 60 mana, so you're going to have more mana problems. So now you can't use your W or your Q in lane. Increase the cost by 25% on your W, level 1. Nerf your damage output that you got, because they wanted her to be like an on-hit, like, I think that's what they were trying to do, is to get her to auto-attack more in lane, to kind of be like a little bit more aggressive. But you can't use your shield aggressively to shield yourself an auto-attack, because it has an 18-second cooldown now. And then they took it from 35% down to 15%. So now you might as well not even have a bonus. It's like a dinky little bonus where you're going to take too much damage. And hold on, what's going on over there? Okay, I think she was just hungry or something. My wife's feeding her. And yeah, they take Eye of the Storm, and this is massive. So they're taking it down to 210 from 240. This is huge. They did this to Lulu, and this is kind of the nail in the coffin for Lulu for a long time, is they nerfed her base health, and then they nerfed her shield from 240 to 210, and that was like lights out Lulu. Lulu's starting to kind of make a comeback a little bit, but that's a huge nerf. I mean, if you don't think that's a big nerf, you're not paying attention, because that's 30, that's 1/8. So that's like 12.5% less base shield. And remember, this base shield is what all of your plus healing and shielding is based on, right? So that means that your healing and shielding is also going to be 12.5% less effective. So it starts stacking up and adding up pretty quickly, all of these nerfs. So now she has an 18-second shield early on that has a lot less base. And she doesn't get any compensation for that, like at all. Like these other things they designed as compensation aren't really that much. Like she gets a little bit of extra movement speed early on, which what are you going to do with that? Who cares? You're just sitting in lane. You're not going to roam and like terrorize mid lane with Janna, you know, roam mid and like use your W on somebody. And remember that extra movement speed was also designed to compensate for the nerf to her movement speed on her W. So her W, they removed 7% move speed, and they're giving her 8% off of her passive. So in the mid to late game, she's actually losing move speed off of that, or at least net neutral, because I think she's losing because she's going to 320 base from 335 other places. So she's net slower across the board, except really early on before you don't have any points in W. Her auto attacks don't matter. Her shield's a lot weaker. Her W is a lot weaker. Her Q is awkward as heck. When you auto, like, you just instantly cast your Q, as you usually do, to try to interrupt skill shots, it moves much, much slower. If you charge it, it moves faster, but it moves a lot slower when you just, like, instantly cast it, which is extremely frustrating. So I think that Janna's in a really bad place right now. Like, I think she's still viable if you really, really need peel in a team fight, like shield or healer, but it is absolutely brutal what they've done to Janna. So they are just, this is just really bad. This is so many changes to her. So yeah, there's nothing good going on here. This is all bad. And she's just going to get absolutely mowed down by any kind of early game aggression. So I think she'll be a top 10 support, but it's going to be like, you're going to have to wait till really late game and just deal with the fact that you're going to do a lot less shielding and healing, but you still have some peel, and you still have that area of effect, like massive heal with your ult. So you still have tools, but... And she's still safer in general than someone like Sona, later in the game from assassins, but she's going to get mowed early. Like, maybe if you're against something like a Soraka or Tarek or something in lane, just something really passive, you might be able to get away with some of these changes, but that's a really, really hard hit to Janna. I mean, she might be completely out of the meta and irrelevant right now, but I think she'll still, like, people will still play her. She'll still be okay, but certainly not what she was. Malphite buff, doesn't matter. Who cares? Malphite just doesn't do enough damage. Like, he basically presses R, and that's it. You know, like, he's okay as, like, a very hardcore counter pick to heavy AD top lanes, but so is Cho'Gath, so is, you know, Jarvan, so is Maokai. All these champions can build similar things to him and be similarly effective. I mean, I guess he does get triple shield. I don't know. I just feel like there are better tank options. I mean, maybe it's silver and gold if you just really want that press R champion. Like, he is good against in team fights. He is good against things like Twitch that don't have escapes. That can't really, like, get around his ultimate. And he's kind of good to Caitlyn to some extent if she doesn't net backwards. So he does have that going. He's like a premier, like, press R, like, big-time team fight against champions that don't have mobility. But he can't really split push that well. He's still going to get massacred by things like Fiora late game. Because her true damage will just cut through all of his shields, and she just has too much healing. Like, anything with healing and, like, really heavy, constant damage late game, I think we'll be able to take him out. So he doesn't have really much of a split push pressure. He's strictly for team fighting. So, I mean, he's okay, I guess. It's not like he's completely awful, but I just feel like there are better tanks most of the time. Mostly, like I said, Maokai, Cho'Gath, Jarvan, just better things you could do top lane. Orianna's okay. I don't think this is going to matter that much. I mean, the missile speed is good. It's going to make it harder to, like, counterplay her. And I don't know about this buffered. I'm not, like, a very good technical Orianna player, like, because there had been something they talked about last patch where if you press it early, it would, like, activate before it actually got to its location. Something, like, really kind of gimmicky in there that you could do to get faster, like, W's or R's, something like that. So I'm not sure under the hood how much that will affect. Only the last cast will occur. Okay, so you can't do W plus R at the same time. Is that what it is? Either way, this is something for, like, high-end, like, really good Ori players. This is a nerf, one way or another. I'm not sure how, but that's a nerf. And then this is some kind of compensatory buff. I don't think it's going to matter that much. It could be a really big deal if Ori's only being played because of something exploitative with this that I'm not privy to, but I think she'll be about the same. She's okay in solo queue. She's a good safe pick in pro play. Ornn, not going to matter. Like, this is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't fix his major problems. Like, yes, mana, that's definitely is one of his problems, but these are other things that need to happen. Like, the problem with Ornn is he requires too much prep and the payoff is too low. Like, you have to set up things with his ultimate, you have to set up stuff with his Q, people need to be near walls. His W, you have to stick to him the entire time and then get close enough to auto attack. Like, there's just too many preps where if he doesn't, like, do part 2 of whatever it is that you're setting up, then it's awful. So, like, if they get out of your W before you hit them with the brittle, it's bad. If you do the ram thing but you miss it, or you don't hit them with the second part, it's bad. If you set up with a QE but you miss your E, it's bad. So it just, everything requires a 2-step process to do, and all of them have, like, a pretty reasonable fail rate if the enemy's paying attention and has mobility. So I think there's just too much counterplay to him. I just don't know why you would pick Ornn over something else that's tanky with crowd control, right? Like, why would you pick Ornn over Maokai? Unless, like, Maokai, Cho'Gath, Jarvan, Sejuani, and like Rammus and a couple other tanks are all banned in the game. I just don't know why you would pick Ornn. Like, what needs to happen to make him a lot better is Q needs to be instant. Like, you press Q, boom, there it is, and then E. Kind of like, I mean, Alistar can do it. Why can't Ornn do it? If you have to adjust the damage a little bit, I think that's fine. But I think his Q needs to be instant. Remove the delay off of the E charge so that he just, like, goes in instantly like an Alistar headbutt. Make R arrive faster. It just gives way too much time for the enemy to like move around and spread out. So just like have it run in faster. Make his abilities scale with HP or armor. Just something consistently that makes sense. Because right now he has 4 different scalings. His Q scales with AD. His W scales off of their max health. His E scales off of your armor and magic resist. And then his R scales off of your AP. So he has 4 different scalings. So it just makes itemization a nightmare on him. What do you get with this guy? To just have things scale with either armor or HP. I'm not sure which, but just something. Like, have his E scale, you know, based off your armor. Have his ult scale based off of armor. His Q scale based off of armor. Something. Or it's just like all tank stats, and that's how he scales. So take away the AD off of his Q. It just doesn't make any sense. Take away the AP off of his ult, and just make it something tanky. Okay, so I think that probably just HP. Like, just have it scale off of his HP or something. I don't know. Something. Just make it something. Okay. Or, like, if you want to theme him around, like, this brittle mechanic and crowd control, just say something like, just give it no traditional scaling, and then if he hits somebody while they're crowd controlled, then the ability does, like, extra damage or something. You know, like, if he hits a Q on somebody while they're crowd controlled, you know, the ability does 20% extra damage. Just make it something like that with all of his abilities if you don't want to give him traditional scaling. But just not this scattered, impossible to itemize and optimize type of build. Okay, Vayne, massive nerf. I've heard people say this is a buff. It is not. That is false. This is maybe a nerf in like a 50 kill game or something in like bronze or silver. Like in most games, this is not a nerf because this is so huge that it can no longer critically strike. So I think this is a massive, massive nerf. Like the only reason that Vayne came back into the meta last fall, she'd been in hibernation for years, is because her Q could crit. So now you could tumble and crit somebody with Infinity Edge for like, you know, 1200 damage or whatever. So that's just really bad that they took this off. So now she can't build a crit build, so she's not going to have enough damage to burst other, like, crit users. So Caitlyn's just going to blow her up with, like, 2 shots. Same thing with Xayah, Trist, all these people, if she has to go for this Bork build. Like, Bork build is okay against tanks, I guess, but I don't know. Now, they did compensate and give this 70% of your total attack damage instead of 50, and I'm pretty sure that's what it used to be with Q before they made it to where it could crit. But, you know, the big problem with this is the best ADC itemization does not include AD, and other alternative Vayne builds are not going to include AD. So, you know, this extra AD would be good if we still lived in a meta from, like, Season 1 where everybody got, like, Infinity Edge plus Bloodthirster or something, right? When Bloodthirster would give, like, 100 AD. So that's when it's good, when you get 2, like, heavy 80 items. Vayne doesn't do that, right? So, you know, usually it's 80 item, attack speed item. That's the build on virtually everybody. And if you go, so obviously it'd be like Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon. You would probably go like Phantom Dancer on Vayne, like Static Shiv, Phantom Dancer. But either way, neither one of those items has AD. Only the Infinity Edge does. So if you go Blade the Ruined King, some people might say, well, I can just go back to going Blade because I can't crit anyways, which is what you'd probably have to do. Blade doesn't have a lot of AD either. It's attack speed. And so your Q's just not, any way you cut it, is doing a lot less damage than it used to. And that's your bread and butter. Like, that's what gives Vayne burst damage that she lacks, that most other AD carries have some form of. She doesn't have that. And so, yeah. And they're lowering her silver bolts at lower levels, but she gets it back at the end. So that's okay. I don't even know why they're messing with that, but fine. And then, okay, so if a champion dies within 3 seconds of being damaged by Vayne, her final hour extends 4 seconds. So if she gets a kill or assist, she gets additional final hour. So if you have really long team fights, so this is kind of trying to make her a team fighter. If you have really long team fights and you're getting kills and assists, you can keep rolling around, chasing people, dodging stuff, which is interesting, but I think they needed to give it a buff. Like, give it extra AD or something then. If you want to, like, make her a team fight reset type of champion, then give her a buff, like, on this. Like, make it give extra AD or extra chasing power. Or, you know what would be really cool that I would like to see is have it lifesteal. Like, give it either on hit lifestealing or give her some kind of just straight up lifestealing stat. Because that would make sense. I mean, she's hunting people. She's a vampire. You know, like, give her lifesteal on her ult. And then that's useful. Because then that also extends fights. So that you have time to get more resets. So you can't get blown up instantly by things. So I think giving her lifesteal would be that balance. So that would give her a very unique niche. Okay, she's going to be the highly mobile, like, lots of staying power, lots of mobility, and long team fights, tank breaker. So that would be something that she could do that would be unique that other champions don't. Because lifesteal is something that is a hot commodity right now. Like, not a lot of champions get it because no one gets Bork anymore. So, yeah, she wouldn't be able to duel as easily to duel someone like a Tristana or someone else, but at least she would have this clear identity and a reason to pick her now over other champions. But they don't have that. That's just something that I'm suggesting. Final hours still only gives you AD, invisibility, and movement speed, which is good, but it's just not enough, I don't think. So, I mean, that's not her problem. It's like, dang, I ran out of final hour in this team fight. I guess we're going to lose. Like, that's not usually how it goes down. So, this is nice. It's obviously a buff, but it's not enough to compensate for her lack or her loss of burst damage. I think her having, like, rolling Q, like, massive burst is not healthy anyway, so I agree with them getting rid of this because that's not her identity. She shouldn't be a burst champion like that. That's, you know, that's giving her something like a Jhin or a Draven type of damage. That's not what she should be all about. She should be about finesse and staying power. And so I think giving her on-hit lifesteal would be something that they should explore. But yeah, as of right now, it's just bad. So I think that's going to force her to go like Blade of the Ruined King or like Ginsu's Rageblade maybe, which both of those are not great on her. She has no AP ratio. I mean, that would let you proc your Silver Bolts twice. I just think that like going the Bork Ginsu's route is just overall going to be a lot weaker. So it's a cool idea for the R. I just think that they need to give her... you know, if crit gets nerfed, this might be good, but I think they need to give her lifesteal. Like, give her the Ardent thing. Just give her, like, 25 on-hit lifesteal or something whenever you use your ult. You know, just something like that I don't think would be too over the top. And I think it would make her a lot more viable. Okay. I saved Zen over here. I'm not going to talk a lot about Zen. There are a zillion changes. This is annoying. This is, like, pretty good. To press R and like ranged champions can't hit you anymore, so that kind of gives you a solution to AD carries if you're killing somebody else, if you're trying to kill a tank or someone else, and to make sure the AD carry doesn't hit you. So I had a gamer that was very annoying to deal with this, but overall I still think he's very similar. Like, you dash in with your E, you try to kill somebody. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, whatever, you're gonna die. So he's good in a long fight if he gets to stand there and auto attack, like an Aatrox, like a Nasus, but all of those are weak for the same reasons. They can get kited and killed because they have very limited gap closers and fairly long cooldown on their gap closers. And they don't have enough burst damage to delete people, and they don't have resets. So, you know, overall, I think it's a buff. I think he'll be a good duelist early, perhaps, in the jungle at lower levels, but he's still going to have problems at Plat Plus. Just like I said, because of Nasus, Rengar, Kha'Zix, all of these champions have problems. The itemization is just not great on him right now. He'll probably going to have to go like Trinity Force or Blade of the Ruined King. Neither of those items is amazing. So yeah, I mean, I think if you want to play an early game aggressive jungler, I still think that either Ezreal, Nidalee, Elise, or Jarvan are going to be your go-to picks. So he's okay. I just think that there will be better choices. What is that? She was sounding weird. She's like, wow. Oh no. She's running out of juice. Here, I'll shut my door. So you don't hear her. My wife's feeding her, and she's just cranky because she's tired and hungry. So she's tired and hungry, and she's eating, but she's like, she keeps crying so she can't eat. Anyways, she hasn't figured that out. Okay, Ardent Sensor changes. So we get Healing, Shielding, and Allied Champion also grants you the Ardent Sensor buff. So this is awkward. I talked about this before. People ask me about this all the time. I'm not sure who this is going to be good on, but it might be broken on some champions. I mean, like, maybe Kale or Misfortune. I don't know. It just seems really weird. Like, maybe mid lane, like utility Kale or something, if you go for, you know, Ardent Sensor early on. It just seems so weird. That would give you the extra attack speed and on-hit damage. I don't know. Like, maybe Misfortune support or something. It seems really weird. Like, I guess Bard, Lulu jump to mind, just some other kind of on-hit. But in general, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Like, Sona would actually, I mean, Sona does auto-attack a lot because of her Q. So it would let you, auto-attack and get your Q hits in. I don't think that's going to matter too much that you get the buff. I do think that missing the healing is a really, really big deal. So I think that Ardent's great, but this is a nerf. I think. I'm pretty sure this is a nerf, but it's still going to be a strong item. So removing that on-hit healing is about 600 gold worth of stats off of each person. Now, yes, it does scale up to give you an additional 15% attack damage and 15 on-hit. But this on-hit healing is just so important because champions are skipping lifesteal items because of this. I mean, 25 on-hit healing. Let's say that in general you have about 100 AD once you get your Infinity Edge. And all your runes and stuff like that, you're going to have about 100 AD on most AD carries. You're going to have a plus 100. Okay. So you're going to have plus 100. And then your base is going to be like maybe 75 in the mid game. So 175. So that's about equal to 15% lifesteal is what you're losing there. So this item basically used to give about 15% lifesteal to 80 carries. And so that's similar to the lifesteal off of Blade of the Ruined King or off of Bloodthirster or off of Death's Dance. Like, it's in the ballpark. So it gave out the free lifesteal that those items give, but now no one's going to have that lifesteal. And that's a really big deal in fights. Over the course of a fight, if you land with Ardent Sensor buff on you, if you land 6 autos, that's 150 extra health. And, if you have like 1500 health, that's 10% extra HP that you have. So, and over longer fights, that only goes up and up and up. So, I think that's, and now where normal lifesteal is better is when you critically strike. Then that gets even better, and the on-hit doesn't get affected by that. But anyways, like, it's a big deal, especially early on, because people are not going to get Vamp Scepter. Like, very few champions are getting Blade of the Ruined King now. And nobody gets Bloodthirster or Death's Dance. I mean, it may not matter as much for Draven, because he can get Death's Dance early, or it may not matter as much for, like, Callista, who's still going to get Blade of the Ruined King, or maybe Twitch, if Twitch opts to get Blade instead of Infinity Edge. So for them, it's not going to matter. If you have a healer support like a Sona or a Soraka, it's probably not going to matter as much. But for a lot of champions, this will matter early on, and it's going to make you a lot more susceptible to poke, and it's going to make you just die faster in all ends. So it's something that's definitely noticeable. I have played on this, and missing that health is a big deal, because you just get out of a decent fight and you're wanting to siege, and then your 80 carries just sit in mid lane with no lifesteal and they're half health. You used to be able to just give them the Ardent buff, let them wave clear, and then they'd be healed back up. Well, now they're not. So it's definitely a nerf. Like I said, I don't think it's going to squeeze enchanters out of the meta. I don't think that it's dramatically going to change a lot that's going on. It's just going to make some champions a little bit stronger and some weaker. So like Lulu and Janna will be weaker because they're not going to have any sort of healing to go with that. But then Sona and Soraka are going to be a little bit stronger by comparison because they do have the heal to go with that. But yeah, it's a little bit less overall for enchanters. D-Shield and Warlords will still be enough to get people through the laning phase if they really want to get through the laning phase, though. So, like, Twitch can still just get Doran Shield and run Warlord's Bloodlust and get through the laning phase just fine. So, I don't think it's going to matter that much in the laning phase. And Ardent, you don't even complete in the laning phase a lot of the time, unless you rush it and just, like, skip your gold item and skip your Sightstone, which I think is definitely not worth anymore. You definitely want to get your gold item, and you definitely want to get your Sightstone. Early on at this point. Like, one of the big perks to rushing Ardent was you got that extra healing in lane, but not anymore. Okay, Bramble Vest. This is not as much of a nerf as they had on the PvE, which kind of makes me sad. They were predicting they were going to nerf it by 300 gold, make it cost 300 more, which would have been lovely, but now they're getting rid of that. So it costs 11% more. The on-hit reflection being lowered from 20 to 15 is a pretty big deal. And this is overall, it's good for the meta. Because tanks are just too strong in top and mid. And a lot of games just come down to who has tanks in top and mid and who doesn't. And sometimes people say, well, you don't have a tank top or mid. Why don't you go one to support? It's a completely different thing. Like, we call them tanks, but they're not the same. Because you don't have the gold as support to afford a lot of the primetime tank items. And you can't even get Cinderhulk. So a lot of the primetime tank items that are really problematic is people will go Cinderhulk, Bramble Vest, Warmogs. And that's so difficult to deal with because they have so much health. And they can just roam around and they're just always going to be full health no matter where they go. So those 3 items right there, and then you can turn that Bramble Vest into a Thorn Mail and eventually get you something like a Spirit Visage or Adaptive Helm or whatever and just take over. But all those items are about 3,000 gold. And so you're just not going to have that as support to deal with it. You're going to have to get things like Sightstone. You're going to have to get things probably like Locket of the Iron Solari. Knight's Vow is still pretty good, but they knocked 100 health off, don't forget. So you're a lot less tanky than you used to be with that item. I think it only has 250 health on it now. So overall, you are nowhere near as tanky as support as you would be in other lanes because you have to get utility items like the Locket, like the Sightstone. Those just aren't going to give you the same kind of tankiness, and you're going to be a much lower level as well. So you're going to have less gold, you're going to be a lower level, and you're going to be forced to get utility items instead of the primetime tank items. So tanks as supports are still not great right now in general. In pro play, you'll see Alistar and Braum. They're just a lot better with highly organized teams. But in solo queue, there's just no substitute. So, anything that makes champions that aren't tanks in those roles more viable is good, because right now, like I said, it just comes down to who has the tank. If your team doesn't have a tank top lane, I mean, I've had a really rough go of it right now in solo queue. We're going to get back up there. I think we'll make one more good run at Diamond before the season ends. We'll see if we get it. I've been in promos for Diamond once this season. I've been Platinum 5 like 5 times this season. But it's been really rough the last couple of days. And a lot of it, if we look, is just whoever has the tank. So let's just look and just see who has the tank, jungle, and top. And let's see which team wins based on which team has the better tanks, okay? So Cho'Gath, better tank, they win. So 1-0 for the tanks. Rammus, we have the better tank. Jarvan, I'm pretty sure, went like all damage, as a lot of Jarvans like to do. Actually, he went some tank. But Rammus is still the superior tank. So, 2-0 for the tanks. This one, neither team had a tank, so that's kind of a wash. We had the better tank. We had Maokai. That's 3-0 for the tanks. No tanks here. That's a wash. I guess you could count Warwick, but how tanky was Warwick building? And he was building tanky. He's not a great tank, but we'll count it. Okay, so 3-1 for the tanks. We'll count that as a loss for the tanks. They had Malphite. He's not an amazing tank, but you know what? He's better than no tank. He's better than Zed, top lane. So that's 4-1 for the tanks. No tanks in this game. This is a push. They have Sejuani versus Maokai. It's about the same. They had the Mundo, but we had Nasus. I think those are similar in terms of tankiness. Trinity. We can just for the sake of just, we'll say that Mundo is the bigger tank, even though he's not that great. I don't know. I'm not gonna count it because both of these are just weird, like off meta tank type champions. So we'll still keep it at 4-1. We'll call it a wash. This is 4-2. Jarvan's a better tank than Ornn is. They had the better tank there, so 4-3. 5-3, because they had the Maokai, we had the Tryndamere. No tanks there. Kind of a wash there. Gragas, the better tank. We don't have any tanks. 6-3. No tanks in this game. Jungle and top. Anyways, you get the picture. I'm not going to go back through it. But tanks win a lot. And so nerfing Bramblevest is going to actually give my team a chance if I don't have the tank. So it just makes it a lot less dependent on champion select. So anyways, I think the overall winners, Fiora is a huge one because they nerfed tanks and she's already pretty good at tanks. And now it's going to be returning a lot less damage on Bramblevest to her. So I think that's a big deal. Other winners would be people like Gnar, Jace, Kled. All those would be good. It might push tanks out of the top lane, but I think they'll still be there. It also helps Soraka if less people get Bramblevest. Edge of Night in theory is good, but like lethality is not good right now because of tanks. If tanks start going away, then lethality will be a lot more relevant. This is the lethality item that people get the least right now. So it does give you the protection, but people are still going to want to get Duskblade or Ghostblade before they get this most of the time. So it's okay, but they need some more lethality buffs before this comes along. Or maybe the preseason might change some of that. We'll see. Righteous Glory, this is another nerf to a key tank item. So this hurts the tanks too. Just keep this in the context of other nerfs to Bramblevest, Gargoyle Stoneplate, last patch, Cinder Hulk last patch, and Val last patch. The tanks are still getting hurt a little bit, but they're still great. That's another slap on the wrist. And then Zeke's is actually pretty big. This is kind of like under the radar, and I didn't understand just how little damage Zeke's actually did. But it used to only do 17.5% of the damage up front on the auto, and then you had to get the rest over time. But now, the upfront damage on the auto attack is 25%. And in most real-world scenarios, you're not going to auto attack someone and just let them burn for 2 seconds for the 50%. You're going to be chaining autos, like auto, 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 auto. So now it does 25% up front. So that's huge. That's 50% more damage than it was doing. And they lowered the cost. So I think this is pretty big. I don't think it's enough to just say, oh my god, like tanks are back, they're overpowered. But I do think that on champions like Rakan who can get this and be great with it, like champions that could go Ardent Censer plus Zeke's, I think this could be really good. I mean, this could be good on someone like Thresh as well. So I think this definitely has a lot of potential as sort of a tank item that also adds an extra steroid to your AD carry, because AD carries and their steroids are just so important right now. Most games come down to who has the tank and who has the higher scaling AD carry. We could play the same game I just did with high scaling AD carries, and I'll tell you right now that the high scaling AD carry almost always wins. So just whoever has the higher scaling almost always wins. So Zeke's is pretty good to complement that. Spell shields now only block the first ability that hits rather than every ability that hits at the same time. So that's pretty good. So if you go in, this is really good for Rakan. If they have Banshee's Veil in particular, if you go in and you press Alt W, it'll block the Alt, but it won't block the W. So you could still, in theory, knock them up with the W and knock off the Banshee's Veil and then run around and tag other people too. So that's pretty nice, especially for Rakan. but it's good for other people too. Okay, so we're getting close. We might be able to get this down to like just an hour and some change. Top 5 for each role. I think Jarvan, Maokai, Fiora, Shin, Cho, top. So just the tank squad plus the tank breaker Fiora. Not much has changed from last patch. I still think they're going to be the premier champs. Mid lane, Kassadin is back to my top spot. I've seen so many Kassadins, and it just feels like he's always relevant. Like if I have a Kassadin in my game, I'm feeling good. You know, on my team, I'm like, okay, well, we can maybe win this, even if we fall behind in every other lane, just if I play around the Kassadin and just try to get him fed. Because he just does so much damage, and he's so tanky, and he's so mobile. He doesn't have great wave clear, but I feel like Kassadin can just take over games by himself sometimes. We had one game where, like, almost literally... Let me pull it up really quick. I don't remember if we won it or not. Like, bot lane was feeding, like, mega hard. I just abandoned bot lane and just tried to play around Kassadin. I feel like there's several games where Kassadin is like almost single-handedly kept us in the game. Even if we lost the game, it was close because we had Kassadin. This was one of them. Like Cass was 9-2. And Varus started off like really poor in lane, but then he picked it up over time. But this was just like a really hard carry Kassadin lane. Or game. Was another one also. Fairly recently. I'm trying to remember where it was. I think we may have lost it. This one. Yeah, we ended up losing, but we were so, like, we were kind of becoming relevant, I feel like. To some extent, because Kassadin ended up getting, like, 8 kills. And I think we were pretty in this, and then we just threw at one point. Maybe it was this one, too. Yeah, this is the one I'm thinking of. Like, this guy's 11-0, but everyone else just would not stop feeding. Like, Darius was 2-9. Like, Lee Sin was 2-8. Cogs 0-5. Like, I was just running around trying to make plays with the Kassadin. It was just so hard to win. But we were so close because of Kassadin. Like, it was really only because we threw near the end of the game. So each one of these games... It's like rough. Like everybody's feeding, like everywhere. Like 2-6 top lane. You know, we were just getting murdered bot lane. I think they were camping us here, and then up here everyone was doing okay, but it was a rough start to this game for sure. So yeah, Kassadin just carries games. He just has so much damage, so much scaling. I've talked about him a lot in the past, and I just think he's the best right now. And he's just so easy to play too. There's like no skill shots. It's so easy. And then Talia, very good too. I don't see her picked a lot, but she's extremely good. Great wave clear, great burst, great roaming. Really good sustained damage in fights. Like, Talia's just amazing. Great zone control with her her pillar knockup and her rocks that she throws on the ground. So Talia's just amazing. She's the other one that I highly recommend. TF is another one who could be on here. I mean, the mid lane is very diverse and good. But I've seen some bad TFs too. You have to really roam and like leverage his ultimate well. So I think TF can be good. I don't know. I mean, TF probably deserves to be in here too. I have Galio in here. Galio's been doing very well at Worlds, but more than anything, he is still a viable tank you can put in the middle. So if you don't have a tank top lane or you don't have a tank jungle and you really just need some extra coverage, Galio's just good, solid. He has great wave clear, excellent teamfight presence, great CC, pretty good damage and scaling on his abilities. Grab Galio here. So nice long ranges. He did take a hit to his mana cost, so it is more expensive, but in mid lane you get blues versus top lane, where obviously you don't anymore. And he can get Abyssal Mask, because his base damages are all pretty high. So 6% of the target's max health instead of 9%. But still, I mean, it's 270 damage plus 6% of their max health if they sit in your tornado. So that's really good. And Shield of Durand, you know, obviously, y'all know what Galio does by this point. He's been out for a long time. Yeah, he has good ratios. I mean, a 0.7, 0.7. You know, 1.35. If you look at that. So, Yeah, I mean, he has great ratios, like respectable damage, pretty high bases. I mean, 260 here, and whatever it was over here, 270. 350 on a level 3. So he has nice, respectable damage, good utility. He is vulnerable. He can get caught out and killed, but that's why he's good in the mid lane. Because it's just going to be harder to catch him there. So, I think Galio is really strong. What do people build on him? I would imagine, like, what? Abyssal Mask. Oh, they like to get Righteous Glory. Yeah, I mean, just whatever. Just pick your tank item. It doesn't matter. You can go... Frozen Heart seems really awkward. Righteous Glory. Yeah, Righteous Glory is probably pretty good. So then you can actually engage with him and then use your stun. Because he doesn't have an engage typically. So yeah, I mean, Righteous... Yeah, just Righteous, Warmogs, Righteous, Knight's Vow, Abyssal. Like, there are just so many different things you can buy on him, and they're good. And you don't have to go Bramble Vest. That's the thing to notice here, is that these nerfs to other tanks, what did they nerf on tanks? They nerfed Cinderhulk, they nerfed Gargoyle Stoneplate, they nerfed Bramble Vest. All of these are items he doesn't get, so he gets other tank items. So he's one of the few people. They did nerf Knight's Vow, but he can get other things. He's just so versatile. Now, they did just nerf Righteous Glory. They didn't nerf the tank stat on it. They just nerfed the cost. So, I still think he's awesome. Why would you ever get Spirit Visage? He doesn't have healing. I don't know. It's troll. But yeah, he's pretty good. So, I do think that, obviously, he's going to have problems against Azir at some point, or Rise, if those come back into popularity. But other than that, he's just great. He just, like, really spanks assassins, too. So, he's awesome. I mean, he might be number 1. He's up there. Like, all 3 of these are really good. Malzahar is another one who's pretty good for solo queue. It's just really good lockdown, press R ultimate, great wave clear with his minions, plus his E. So it's just easy mode. You just push him in and then just go roam and make plays. So I favor him over TF. I don't know. They're both good, but I think he can just push and roam a little bit better. He doesn't have to wait on his cooldown to do that. So, I don't know. He's really good. And then Azir I have put in here. I have seen some really good, like, even people that don't have high win percentages on Azir. Like, someone pointed out, someone in one of these games that I played was like a 17% Azir, and he took over this guy. I think it was this one. I mean, it might be a really low amount of games played or something, but someone in my chat was telling me that he was like a super low win rate Azir. Yeah. So I guess he was like, I don't know, 1-6 or something, and he won his next 2. But whatever, like he doesn't really, you know, play Azir that much. He does okay on it, but he just like took over the game in my game, like this one. 13-3. So that's what I'm saying. It's not just Azir specialists. Like, other Azir players are starting to figure, like, just even newer, like, people that don't play him a lot, are starting to win with him. So I think he deserves a spot in the top 5. I mean, other honorable mentions you could put in there. Syndra is a notable omission. Syndra's really, really good. Syndra deserves to be in there somewhere, probably. Like, Annie for solo queue, like, really good. Orianna can still be really good in some circumstances. Ahri can be good. So mid lane's the most diverse role right now, I think, for solo queues. There's a lot of stuff that can win, but I think these are probably the best. Jungle, J4, Maokai Sejuani. I think Rammus deserves to be in there. Rammus is just a monster in solo queue. He just exploits people who are out of position constantly. You just run up, taunt him, fight. It's just so hard to get away from him. And if you're losing a fight, he just chases after you with his Powerball because it's on a much lower cooldown. So I think Rammus is just an absolute terror, especially when a lot of people are picking these like squishy, immobile 80 carries and squishy like enchanter supports. It's just delicious for Rammus and his taunt. So I think Rammus is really powerful for solo queue right now. But at the same time, I think that J4, Maokai, Sejuani are still excellent too. If you want to go a damage jungler, I recommend Kayn. Ezreal's still good. Elisa's still good. But Kayn just has excellent scaling and excellent gank path. So I think Kayn's still really powerful in solo queue too. And then finally for AD carries, I think Xayah is still number one, and a lot of that's because Rakan's the number one support, I believe. And so those two work incredibly well together. She scales very well. She'll get Essence Reaver. I think they usually get Essence Reaver plus Infinity Edge. It's like Essence Reaver, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge. So they can go double AD items. Because she scales really hard off of AD, and she's ability based in some ways. A lot of her damage is in her E and not necessarily just her autos, and so going double AD doesn't feel that bad that you have less attack speed. Yeah. So something like this, Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver. So they go Essence Reaver early because that gives you more ultimates, which helps keep you safe, and the extra mana is really nice for wave clear as well. Okay, she does Rapid Fire, help with towers. Ooh, I like the Death's Dance build, actually. Yeah, that's just a ton of AD. That's just to lay the smackdown on him. Okay, so it doesn't look like she does static that much because she already has really good wave clear. I would still get Infinity Edge with her. That just scales so well with her E. I see there are some people that don't do that. I think Essence Reaver is definitely what you want to do with her. But I would go Essence Reaver Infinity. That'll give you 50%. Essence Reaver Infinity Rapid Fire. That'll give you 80% crit right there. So either way, very strong, excellent peel. When people are trying to dive you, can definitely bust down tanks. Has really strong like burst damage. So when you like ult people and then bring all your feathers back to them, they're basically dead. So it's just really, really hard to deal with her. And obviously with Rakan, she gets a ton of extra damage on her W, and she gives Rakan a really good jump distance. So I think she's extremely strong, and I think she's just obviously has the best synergy with Rakan, who is the best support right now. Caitlyn, I'm going to boldly go ahead and put her at number 2. I think these changes are really going to skyrocket her. Very, very strong. And Twitch could be number 1 in there. Twitch is just going to have a rough early game, especially now that he doesn't get free healing off of Ardent Sensor. I have just seen Twitch is totally flop because they just don't know how to position, and they just get ganked a lot and massacred. So Twitch is still really powerful in solo queue, but I think Xayah and Caitlyn will just be more consistent, specifically Xayah. But Caitlyn, if it's a good Caitlyn, will be good too. You got to use those traps. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but the traps are a huge deal. And then Draven could be as high as number 1 also if you're a Draven specialist and you're really good with him. I think he's making a comeback. Engaged supports are making a comeback, and also because Janna's falling, we'll talk about that here in a second in the support tier list section. Janna's falling. People aren't getting Ardent Sensor to heal anymore. And tanks are kind of falling out of favor, so Draven kind of has a bit of a better time fighting other squishies, because people are starting to like rotate into doing more fighter type of champions and assassins as tanks are starting to fade away a little bit. So Draven's really good in that environment, and he's one of the only like real good like early game bully champions ever since Chen got clapped with all of his nerfs. So Draven could be as high as number 1 again. He's very good. Kalista also could be as high as number 1. There are a lot of good ADCs in solo queue right now. If you're really good with Kalista, especially early game with an engaged champion like a Thresh or a Rakan, something like that, can be good. Kalista requires a pretty good chunk of skill. The fact that she does get Blade of the Ruined King early for that extra healing is really nice against certain poke champions. And Tristana, I've bumped her out of the top 5. She could still be really good. I just think that Caitlyn's going to starve her out of that role. If you want the siege attacker who's safe, I think Caitlyn is just going to replace Xayah if you have Rakan or you want good team fight like burst damage. And Twitch if you want kind of that stealthy hyper carry late game. So I think Triss just has her purpose taken, where she was the premier like pusher tower taker. She's still going to be good. I just think Caitlyn's going to be better. So if Caitlyn's banned, Triss is going to get a lot higher priority. I still think Triss is really good. It's just all of these are really good in the right context. It just depends. So ADC is actually a lot healthier now. I think that Kate's back and that some of these changes have gone on. So now there are at least 6, like, pretty viable. If you're not playing one of these 6 AD carries, you're goofing up. But these 6 are pretty good. I think there were a lot of times where my team was not playing those. So let's see. How many times did they not play it? One. What's my win rate when team doesn't pick one of those champions? 0-1, 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. 2-3, 2-4. 2-5. 3-5. 3-6. Anyways, we win a lot more. We win like 60%, 66% more games or something like that when someone plays one of those champions versus any other type of champion. So, anyways, let me go grab a drink of water really quick and we'll move on to the tier list video. Actually, how long is this? I could do I'm going to do a separate tier list video to keep this short. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end that here. So that's it just for the patch notes and talking about the meta and the top 5 other roles. I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to grab a drink, grab a bite to eat really quick. And then I'm going to do this support tier list video and just make it a separate video so I can keep each one of these to about an hour. Okay, and that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Be sure to check out part 2. I'll leave the link somewhere in the description so you can hop over to the support tier list. And I'll see you next time.